To the courts now, and murder-accused Sandile Mantsoe has taken the stand on the third day of his trial. He says police officers tried to solicit a bribe from him. He's accused of killing his ex-girlfriend Karabo Mokoena and burning and dumping her body in a field. eNCA's Khayelihle Khumalo attended proceedings. He joins us back in studio now. Kaya, this was fairly unexpected. Sandile Mantsoe himself taking the stand today.
Well, absolutely, Joanne. It was a very surprise move from the side of the prosecutors. And he was very overzealous as he took the stand, Joanne. He was actually talking about the fact that where he stayed, his very lavish apartment, no one can easily afford to stay there. And he was talking about the 10 of events during that night prior to his arrest, making something to the effect that as much as, you know, there were blood stains somewhere in the floor in his bedroom, and he was talking about the fact that he was planning to move out from the apartment. But then the officers questioned him as to where exactly was he relocating to, and he was not able to answer all those array of questions. But also another very startling part from his side, Joanne, was that he came across as very overconfident, is very overzealous, and really just to some extent downplaying the very gravity of this particular case.
I see that his testimony was bracketed by 3 investigating officers.
Well, absolutely, Joanne, it was. And for example, you had Detective Maseko from the Diepkloof police station. That's where the actual case was reported in Soweto, subsequent to the time when Karabo went missing. So that's where the family went in Soweto to report the case. So that's the officer who traveled to Sandton, to his apartment, to really just search around, because that was a place where she was last seen. And that's thanks to the CCTV footage that the officers were able to obtain from the management of the complex.
Just remind us of what one of the officers had to say about this admission of guilt that Sandile Mantsoe seemingly made.
Exactly. So one of the officers, also another investigating officer in this case, Officer Mhlongo from Diepkloof as well, he said as he was talking to Sandile, he was very polite to him. He was not compelling him to say anything whatsoever. But of his own accord, what he told him was that, look, I actually killed Karabo and I dumped the body somewhere in Sandringham. So the officer said then he went away to go and fetch a pen and a paper to write down the statement. But then when he got back to talk to Sandile, he was not now willing to, you know, to talk about this issue. So then the court today, for example, Joanne, talked about the admissibility of this particular issue. So then they've decided, the judge actually made a special, observation and a ruling saying this is actually admissible in terms of the admission during the course of the case.
In what context did he refer to an officer trying to bribe him, allegedly?
Well, actually, that's his version of those events. So the officer says he made this particular confession, and then there was this about 10 from his side. But in as far as his version is concerned, Sandile is saying the only issue that he had is that the officer was very polite to him in a very confused state that he found himself in. This was the only officer who could relate to him, who took him to Sandton police station. So when he got into the police station, he claims that the officer said, we can just, make this thing work, and we can solicit a bribe. So, but obviously the officer said that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's pure fabrication, and he stands by his argument that Sandile made a confession, but then he was not willing to officially for the confession to be written down.
All right, thank you very much for that. Keep watching that story for us, Khayelihle Khumalo.